Welcome to the Grand Theft World podcast, hosted and sponsored by grandtheftworld.com. This is episode 98. We're almost at episode 100. It's September 18th, 2022, and we're going to dig into stories for the next 6 or 7 hours covering the news of the week. What are these bombshell news stories we're going to break into? I'll sample a few that we'll touch lightly because the other stuff that we're going to cover tonight, I want to keep it a secret. So let's go into some of the stories. The DOJ, the Department of Justice, felt it necessary running up to the midterms to raid 40 of Trump's associates, or at least give them subpoenas. People like Tucker Carlson, that renegade against liberty.
Here's the first story we have from the New York Times. Justice Department issues 40 subpoenas in a week, expanding its January 6th inquiry. It also seized the phones of 2 top Trump advisors, a sign of an escalating investigation 2 months before the midterm elections. Now this is like October surprise territory. They say we're not supposed to do anything 60 days before an election. Okay, well, they just did. And they're likely going to keep doing it. I think it's possible Trump gets indicted. I don't know for sure. They say the seizure of the phones, coupled with a widening effort to obtain information from those around Mr. Trump after the 2020 election, represent some of the most aggressive steps the department has taken thus far in its criminal investigation into the actions that led to the January 6th assault on the Capitol by a pro-Trump mob. That's interesting. They said assault, not insurrection. The extent of the investigation has come into focus in recent days, even though it has often been overshadowed by the government's legal clash with Mr. Trump and his lawyers over a separate inquiry, blah, blah, blah.
The other aspect is it's like a war being fought on both sides. So there's Trump activities and then there's Biden activities. I'm not a player on either red team or blue team. I'm just a spectator here in America. So the next story is, remember Russiagate a couple years ago was kind of a big deal when Trump was in there. The FBI had a paid informant that they helped with MI6 Christopher Steele to make the PP dossier. This started the whole Russiagate movement. Well, as it turns out, the FBI's Russian informant wasn't telling them the truth. And that came out through the Durham probe this past week.
You know, talk about bad things. This has been a bad day for anyone who wants to trust the media. Particularly anyone who says, don't listen to those people on Sky News. Trust the mainstream media instead, particularly the ABC, of course. Well, 2 developments today. The first, a bombshell announcement overnight. You will remember, I'm sure, how for years you were told by the mainstream media, by the ABC particularly, that President Donald Trump had colluded with Russia to win the 2016 election against Hillary Clinton. The implication was pretty clear. He stole it with the Russian help. And the ABC treated these accusations as gospel.
Tonight, we begin our special 3-part investigation into the story of the century, the election of US President Donald Trump and his ties to Russia. The Kremlin's puppet master now has America dancing to his discordant tune. He couldn't have planned it better.
We've since learned, of course, that this story of the century was a crock of borscht. There was no collusion. We've learned that the file of allegations that the FBI relied on and leaked to the media, a file accusing Trump also of hiring prostitutes in Moscow to do disgusting deeds I can't mention, was in fact cooked up by a discredited ex-spy paid by people working on behalf of the Democrat Party for Hillary Clinton, paid him to look for dirt. Now, that bit we didn't already know. We did already know that. But last night, our time, a US Special Counsel, John Durham, commissioned by the US government, filed documents charging the key source of that file, Russian Igor Danchenko, with lying to the FBI. He pleads not guilty. That's one thing. But Durham's court filings also reveal that this Danchenko, the source for this file, that created this phony story that ran for 3 years, he was, for 3 years, also paid by the FBI as an informant, trashing Trump. But more astonishing, this man had links in Moscow to Russian intelligence and has admitted so. Can you believe that? That this giant Trump collusion hoax was largely inspired by fake claims from a Russian connected to Russian intelligence and a man paid by the Democrats and by Hillary Clinton's campaign. It's an astonishing story. The story of the century, dare I say. But it's a story I doubt you'll ever hear, told in full on your ABC.
Another story that came out is, remember when Trump got raided at Mar-a-Lago a couple weeks ago and the FBI told Trump, turn off all your internal video cameras? Well, I saw Trump's lawyer come out this week and say they actually didn't turn off those cameras. So there is footage of the FBI going through former President Trump's private residence, Mar-a-Lago, and whether or not those tapes get dropped before the midterms.
Alina, are the medical records, the tax records, attorney-client privilege records, I know the passports have been returned. Have they been returned, number one? Number two, the FBI did ask that Mar-a-Lago turn off their security cameras. You did not turn them off. Will you be releasing those videos?
We will always cooperate, Sean. We always have. We always will. Every investigation,
I mean,
and as you stated a couple nights
somebody
ago.
like me, I'll take them. I'd love to have them. Yeah. Hello. I'm the guy working in the press here.
You know what? We're Sean, you'll have me on and I'll talk about them, but I don't know if we'll release them. The truth is, unlike some of these federal agencies, we don't leak. We follow the rules. And I'm actually really proud of the Trump team today. It was a major win. We won on all counts. And I think it's important. It relays faith. And at the end of the day, they delayed it till November 30th. So their plans of messing around with the election, yet again with midterms, got a little screwed up today.
Let
Sorry
me
about
ask you
that,
again,
guys.
though.
But you shouldn't have been so far reaching.
Next story related to that is there's 14 FBI whistleblowers saying that the Justice Department has become weaponized for political purposes. That's a very dangerous thing. If you look at other case studies in history where the justice system becomes weaponized, it's usually tied to communism, socialism. A lot of the democide in the 20th century was responsible because of those types of activities.
It's the left creates a lie. Big media, mainstream press reports the lie. Big tech amplifies the lie. So the country, though, the good news is they figured it out. And I'll tell you who else has figured it out. 14 FBI agents have come to our office as whistleblowers, and they are good people. There are lots of good people in the FBI. It's the top that's the problem. But some of these good agents are coming to us telling us this is baloney what's going on, the political nature now of the Justice Department. God bless them for doing it, coming and talking to us about the school board issue, about a whole host of issues. And I would point out, Laura, that we now have had 6 agents come forward as whistleblowers. 2 on the school board's narrative, on the school board's issue, and 4 now regarding January 6th.
Also, popular philosopher, there aren't too many of those these days, Jordan Peterson came out with a conservative manifesto. Most importantly, from what I took from it was he had a whole section in there on autonomy.
Autonomy. The emergent problems that constantly beset us and simultaneously offer new opportunities can only be addressed by the continual provision of equally unpredictable and variable sets of solutions. Such provision is best ensured by valuing and encouraging development of the widest possible range of productive activities and enterprises, from which variation might be drawn the most appropriate solutions. Autonomous citizens can bring the individual differences of their temperament, experience, and skill to bear on the problem of adaptation itself. Autonomous people and institutions, as widely distributed as possible, are free to vary in their response to the particularized demands of their local environments. From that variant pool, all individuals, free to communicate and assess, can derive the solutions most apt and efficiently matched to their current situations and problems. Widely distributed autonomous local activities allow for the establishment of resilient, large-scale, unified systems optimally resistant to the rapid and dangerous spread of any given unpredictable emergent problem, optimally able to respond with timely and particularized solutions. The principle of autonomy, therefore, enables abundant provision in relation to the necessities and luxuries of life, maximal choice regarding the manner in which that provision will occur, and diverse opportunities for meaningful, sustaining engagement in the voluntary, productive, and sustainable private and social endeavors that best produce abundance and choice. Free markets best fulfill the need for autonomy, local activity, and wide distribution. Their superiority to all other known and likely possible systems, given that fulfillment, should be unapologetically recognized and promoted by those dedicated to the canonical values of the West. No other systems allow for the crucial and ever-changing decisions about what is currently valuable to be made by the uncompelled choice and voluntary endeavor of the widest possible number of people. No other systems allow for the sampling and aggregation of the myriad of widely varying and particularized thoughts and decisions constituted by that free choice and voluntary endeavor. No other system, therefore, does or apparently can operate in the manner that makes continued adaptation to the unpredictable horizon of the future both possible and desirable.
Also, last but not least, we had an in-between podcast episode summit last Friday. It aired, it premiered on YouTube just earlier tonight, right before this episode. It will be reposted as well at Rumble and Rockfin, all these great places. Check it out. It's got evidence that is existing. It's substantial. It's meaningful. It is not considered in the 9/11 Commission's official report. I put it there for a memorialization, so information like that doesn't find its way into the deleted folder of history on the internet. I showed this Joint Chiefs of Staff, 1st of June, 2001, aircraft piracy, hijacking, and destruction of derelict airborne objects. They changed the interdiction policy, and this is why the guy's telling, according to Mineta, the guy comes in and says the plane's 20 miles out, the plane's 10 miles out, do the orders still stand? Cheney says, yes, of course the orders still stand. Have you ever said it? Have you heard anything to the contrary? They changed the policy. That's why the Pentagon gets hit on 9/11. Now, also, top greatest hits of the Joint Chiefs of Staff is a document like this, Operation Northwoods, where they had the idea of hijacking airliners and false flag terrorism, all this sort of stuff, right? So there's a 40-year arc of Joint Chiefs of Staff concern over airline dereliction policy. Now, what could have triggered this? That's a good question. You're going to have to think about that. I want to introduce another piece of evidence. I'm not giving answers. I'm pointing out the flaws. 1998, Council on Foreign Relations, Foreign Affairs, cover articles, combating catastrophic terrorism. Ashton Carter, future Secretary of Defense. John Deutsch, accused narco-terrorist from the CIA, by Mike Rupert. Zelikow, a PhD public myth maker who worked in the Bush administration co-authoring a book with Condoleezza Rice on Western Germany reunified, then becomes the head of the 9/11 Commission report after the Jersey Girls won't allow Henry Kissinger to do it because Kissinger and Kissinger Associates is all over this. L. Paul Bremer worked at Kissinger Associates. So when we're talking about these things, like there's a certain set of grammar, the who, what, where, when, why, and how, and then who are all the different people over time? What were they doing, right? What was Zelikow doing before 9/11 Commission reports? There's two key articles in here. One is by Bernard Lewis, Osama bin Laden's license to kill, his declaration of jihad, and look how they spell it, because that's the British spelling. So you're getting some Israeli-British propaganda in this article talking about Osama bin Laden's going to go after the Jews and the Crusaders, right? 1998, that might not be a big deal. Bin Laden had been active since like 1988 in his Al-Qaeda organization, which means the database, by the way, but we'll talk about that some other time. This article is highly interesting. Catastrophic terrorism, tackling the new danger by the three suspects, weapons of mass destruction, World Trade Center, like a new Pearl Harbor, right? There's all sorts of great quotes in here. You might have heard, like the PNAC document from 2000. Well, they drew all their inspiration from this catastrophic terrorism treatise in this one, right? So there's a chain of people who have an agenda that involves bin Laden well before 9/11, and then all these people rise to power right after 9/11. No one gets fired. These sort of things are credible pieces of evidence that people should dig in and say, yeah, what is Zelikow's role? Why was he brought in? Is he the best investigator, or did he come to the 9/11 Commission with an outline already created?
Well, let me say this. I'd like to rewind to the Joint Chiefs of Staff and get to 9/11 itself, because we actually have the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff at the time, Richard Myers, on the record during the 9/11 Commission hearing being asked about what? Phantoms. And what were phantoms that day? A lot of people are under the impression that we had these 4 hijackings and that was it, and that's what was being followed on radar by our military. Nothing could be further from the truth. We had multiple hijackings all over the country that were representative as phantoms. In other words, you didn't know whether they were real or not on the radar screens during the attacks. These drills did not stop after the first plane crashed. Many of them were being run out of Cheyenne Mountain. We found that out once we got the NRO, National Reconnaissance Office tapes. That took years. They took place up until 20 minutes after Flight 93 went down. That is a fact. And you can listen to that. And Myers acknowledged the fact that we fought, quote unquote, his words, many phantoms that day. They had hijackings coming out of Alaska and elsewhere that were completely false. And if you listen to that tape recording, the man actually stays on the line and says, I need you to disengage all the inputs on the exercise side only. And again, this is factual information. Anybody can look it up themselves, see the raw material, and it has yet to be debunked. Although I will say this, Vanity Fair, who did a piece on loose change in the month before that, recognized that those tapes were now available and essentially said they proved nothing and actually disproved all of the quote-unquote conspiracy theories, yet they refused to talk about those war games.
Also, coming up tonight is our kickoff with Luke Rudowski. It's a report from earlier today. Let's go to Luke Rudowski of thebestpoliticalshirts.com. This is one of them. And let's learn some more about the ongoing events of this week.
Oh, cool. It looks like New York City just opened up its own theme park. I hear it's called the New York City Experiment, and from all the reviews, it's absolutely terrifying.
What makes Autonomy uniquely empowering? Autonomy is a self-help course unlike any other. Over the course of our 12-week program, you'll experience weekly live lectures from Richard Grove, specifically designed to equip you with the skills you need to set yourself free. Free from the learned helplessness taught in our schools, free from the dependence on a corrupt system that serves only to uphold the rich, free from the structure of your 9-to-5 if that's your prerogative. Plus, you'll enter into a community of like-minded individuals who are pursuing the same freedom you are, and who'll support you and learn alongside you every step of the way. A lifetime of community and the tools to live however you want. We can't wait to meet you. Learn more at getautonomy.info.